Coming up at the top of the hour, college football playoff top 25. You can think of this as the extended play version. Reese Davis, Booger McFarland, Joey Galloway, and Greg McElroy will take you up to the top of the hour and give you the exclusive unveiling of the first rankings from the College Football Playoff Selection Committee. Remember, second year of the 12-team playoff. A little bit of a change in terms of seeding this year. It'll go right in line with the rankings. Still 5 conference champions. Highest ranked ones will make the field. But the seeding, all can be from one conference if that's the way it falls. Okay, think about it from this perspective, the teams we've watched this year. What are you most compelled by, most looking forward to seeing from the rankings tonight?
Well, in the past, we've had a lot of conversation about head-to-head. And when it comes to the 2 lost teams, when you look at Miami and Notre Dame, okay, we saw what happened in the first game of the season where Miami beats Notre Dame, but Miami is descending. Notre Dame is ascending. So how do you look at these 2 teams right now when it comes to 2 lost teams?
I want to see what happens at the top. Ohio State has been the AP #1 for a long time now, but I don't know with the metrics. When you put the metrics in there, you have to talk like what you see on the field versus how much metrics you're going to have. So between Ohio State, Indiana, Texas A&M, I'm looking forward to see how they rank those.
How would you order those teams? You're sitting in the committee room. Joey Galloway's on the committee. Frightening though that may be.
It's very frightening.
How would you stack those?
I get on the committee one of these days.
Me too. You and me, Joey. When we retire someday, you and I are both going on the committee. How would you, 1, 2, 3? How would you?
I would go Texas A&M, Indiana, then Ohio
Why?
State. Because for me, early in the season, in your first rankings, I think it is a lot of analytics.
Okay.
You should lean on analytics. I'm telling you, the eye test part of it, I'm not great at it, which I think I was. But if I was, I'd be a much better gambler. And when I look at these teams and I assume this team's going to beat that team, and we see it every single week, it doesn't happen. So I would lean more toward analytics, and Texas A&M analytically is better.
And just off of that, to your point, Reese, if you just look at it with the eye test, Texas A&M's win at Notre Dame might be the best win of the season so far.
I've said that.
Right.
I think it is. What do you think, Greg? What are you looking forward to?
I'm going a totally different direction. You referenced the analytics. You referenced the metrics. Right now, we have different criteria than what we've had in the past. Things are weighted differently. Not that they're not taking everything into account, but schedule strength, and schedule strength is probably the most important thing now, and record strength being the other. So I think the most interesting team tonight is Georgia Tech. And I think Georgia Tech's a really good football team. Watching them, love their quarterback, love their identity. I think they're balanced. They got exposed last week. And if you look at their strength of schedule, 84th right now according to our metrics. While 8-1's pretty. Last year, Georgia Tech, based on how the committee ranked them last year, probably would have been like a top 6, 7, 8 team. This year, how far did they fall with the newfound appreciation that we have for schedule?
And a couple of things to point out, too. When you think about the committee, remember, there are different members every year. It's a 12-person committee this year. It was 13 as normal, but for the fourth year, they'll operate, fourth time in the 12-year history, they'll operate with 12 members. Randall McDaniel had a personal issue and withdrew. So the one thing, there are new committee members. Before people get all upset and say, well, they don't know ball. 6 of the guys, 6 of the people on the committee either coached, played, or both in college football. They have strong football voices in there. And to your point, the metrics are a little different. They've changed how they evaluate the strength of schedule, and then for the first time, they are officially using a metric they call record strength, which is basically how well did you perform against your schedule relative to how a top 25 team would have been expected to perform. So there are different things that they're looking at this year. There are different weights on those things.
And there's different point, though, with the metrics now. Texas A&M is still best in the metrics. They're still better than Ohio State and Indiana in the metrics. No matter how you weight them, they're ranked higher in those metrics. It's different to me when a team like Georgia Tech loses in their situation because of the way they lost. There's different ways of losing. They got dominated physically with a team running the ball down their throat. That feels different to me. When Vandy plays Texas and they just look outmatched in that game, those kind of losses feel different than, say, like when a Miami loses to a Louisville and it's like 4 interceptions and those kind of things. Those losses have different weight when I'm talking about eye test.
Totally fair. And I think back to what Reese was saying, too. Every year, the committee, different personalities. This committee that's why it's one of my favorite nights of the year. Because even though Joey will always remind me, oh, don't worry, it's going to work itself out.
It's just the first one.
It's just the first one. Yeah, of course it is. It matters. But if you look,
Mac Rhodes will be joining us to answer some of these questions. Greg, go ahead.
And I think it's great, too, because every committee's got a little different personality. Last year's committee put a high premium on win-loss record, which, by the way, is totally fine. I don't have a problem with that. Everybody views this differently. How will this committee view? And you can get a real sense of what they prioritize by looking at a few teams tonight. Virginia being one, Georgia Tech being another, where Miami is relative to Notre Dame, Oregon relative to Ole Miss, a few other things that we can figure out throughout the course of the game.
How you lost, as you guys said, important. Notre Dame lost 2 on the last play of the game. One literally and one virtually the last play. Heather Dinich is with us. Of course, she does a spectacular job covering the college football playoff. We've hit a lot of these topics, Heather. What are you most fascinated to see tonight?
I'm fascinated to see where the ACC is in this whole conversation. How far does Miami drop? Where are Virginia and Louisville? Because right now, it seems like the ACC is shaping up to be a one-bid league. And how does that compare to the Big 12 and their opportunities as well? So the other thing, Reese, is where are contenders' opponents? What does a win against Texas mean for Ohio State? You know, how does the committee, I'm curious to ask them, what do they think about a win against LSU these days, given everything that's happened? So those are some of the things I'll be keeping an eye on.
It's the same as Penn State.
And Clemson. Penn State, Clemson. LSU's all the same. Maybe a little bit better. Another thing to think about, too, is there's no perfect metric. But one of the things that they're doing this year is they are putting teams basically in tiers, and they are defining them by a standard deviation from the mean. So basically, if you're both in tier 1, for instance, or you have a loss against a tier 1 team, or maybe you have a loss against a tier 3 team, the fallacy in that can be sometimes, listen, I'm making up a number, but the highest ranked team in tier 2 is a lot closer to a tier 1 team than it is to a tier 3 team. So nothing's going to be perfect, but they are at least trying to make the analytics a little more rigorous in the evaluation process.
Well, that sounds a little like hoops, though, with quad one.
It's very it's a lot like it.
It sounds really complicated, too, to be honest.
I can get on board with that, by the way. The computer's doing more work is good by me. I'm fine with that.
So you want the BCS to come back?
I don't want that. Let's not get carried away. But I do think it removes some of the blame and the incorporated bias that everyone assumes everyone has, which is ridiculous.
And even though all the numbers have changed and the committee people changes, the one thing that hasn't changed is they sit and they watch the game.
Yes, they do.
They watch the football games, and to me, that has to matter for something. And I rely and have faith in that at the end of the day.
We'll see how this goes.
Hey, can we clip that off?
Yes,
we're
going to need that one.
Nobody
Save that.
believed it when you
and
said
a wink,
No,
too?
actually, you know what? Actually,
A wink?
And I think just a little reminder, a little bit of a reminder. Bias is not defined by, you don't agree with me.
Yeah.
Therefore, at the door, you recuse yourself if you have a connection to the various teams that are under consideration. Glad to have you with us. College Football Playoff Top 25. We're going to show you the rankings in a matter of moments. We haven't seen them. You see them when we do. Reese Davis, Booger McFarland, Joey Galloway, and Greg McElroy. What are you looking forward to tonight, Boog?
Well, just to see the makeup of this committee. It's a new committee, and just to see what they're weighing. I think the biggest thing I always look for every year is how do you weigh the head-to-head. And we got 2 teams with a couple of losses, Miami and Notre Dame. They've played each other. Miami beat Notre Dame. One team is ascending. The other team is descending. How does this committee look at these 2 teams tonight? I think where they're ranked tonight gives us just a little bit of insight to that.
I want to see what happens at the top of the 3 undefeated teams, Ohio State, Indiana, and Texas A&M. They're going analytics or they're going eye test. When you look at these 3 teams where they sit tonight, now again, this is the beginning, Greg. It doesn't matter.
There you go.
Settle down.
First one.
Yeah.
But I do want to see what they do with those 3 teams because their resumes are so different.
I love Joey. Always, it'll take care of itself.
Yeah,
It always takes care of
always.
itself. Like the last 2 years, there's been no drama on selection day. The team I'm most intrigued by a mile is Georgia Tech. This year, the committee, albeit different individuals, also slightly different weight to the analytics and the criteria. You now have schedule strength metric, which is slightly different than what we've seen in the past. We also have record strength metric than what we've seen in the past. It's weighed more heavily. And the team that best reflects that is Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech's got a beautiful 8-1 record. They've looked really good offensively. They have a Heisman contender at quarterback. They've been able to run the ball. They've been able to throw the ball. Defensively, yeah, they had one hiccup, but their schedule strength, according to our metrics, is sitting at 84. Last year's committee really put a premium on win-loss. They would have been probably 7, 8, 9 last year. Where are they this year with the new weight on schedule strength and on record strength. That's what I'm fascinated to find out.
Right, and record strength is an official criteria for the selection committee for the first time, meaning how well did you play against your schedule. Now, you've seen this on ESPN.com, and committee members can look at it if they want, but it's an official metric now. Just a reminder of how things are. We've tweaked the field just a little bit, or not the field, but at least seeding the field. 5 highest-ranked conference champions all get spots in the field. Then after that, it will just be the highest-ranked teams. Now, when you start to fill out the bracket for the final rankings, the 4 highest-ranked teams, regardless of whether they've won a conference, regardless of conference affiliation, will be seeded 1 through 4. Then beyond that, you'll have 8 teams playing in the first round. Those top 4 get the bye. The teams seeded 5 through 8 will get games on campus. We need to get more games on campus, but that's a different discussion for a different day. Then we'll play throughout the bracket. No reseeding or anything like that. Quarterfinals and semifinals in the traditional bowl sites, as you see there. Then the national championship game will be played in the greater Miami area on January 19th, and that's when they will decide it. So now let's look at the initial rankings from the College Football Playoff Selection Committee, brought to you by Allstate. Team checking in at number 25 after losing to Oklahoma. It's the Tennessee Volunteers. At number 24, ahead of Josh Heupel's team, the Pittsburgh Panthers. Now, Pittsburgh only has 1 loss in ACC play, explosive offense. They have 1 non-conference loss.
And they might be one of the most impactful teams remaining. They still play Notre Dame, they play at Georgia Tech, and they host Miami in their final 3 games. So this team, albeit at 24, has a huge impact on what this playoff might look like.
Number 23. The Washington Huskies. The Huskies only lost. Now, they didn't score much against either Ohio State or Michigan, but otherwise, Jed Fish's team has been rolling in explosive offense. Number 22. Eli Drinkwitz's Missouri Tigers, and a big opportunity coming for them when they play Texas A&M.
Without a doubt. And when you talk about a team that is going to play a factor, look no further than Missouri, from strength of record to teams they played to now the big tilt coming up against A&M.
Number 21. Michigan. Now, the Wolverines have probably lost their 2 most difficult games. They had the win over Washington, but they lost the game on the road to Oklahoma, lost the game on the road against USC.
And they will play Ohio State at the end of the season. As we talk about who could possibly be that 4th Big Ten team if they get 4, look at Michigan, look at USC, who I'm expecting to be coming up pretty soon.
That's a great point. USC and Washington are going to play later on, too. Let's look at number 20. At number 20, wow. The Iowa Hawkeyes.
Very interesting.
They've improved over the course of the season. The offense, even with Mark Gronowski, a quarterback, started very slowly, getting better. Shot at Iowa. At Oregon, I should say, coming up for an opportunity.
And you have to wonder, this is the first team where you're like, all right, are they factoring in a good loss? Nobody played Indiana better than Iowa. So maybe they're factoring that in a little bit here, even though when you look at their best win against the 6-3 Minnesota team, everyone else is under 500. Bit of a reach here, but maybe they're factoring in how they played against Indiana.
Yeah, I had the loss to Iowa State early. The Cyclones have struggled since then. So Kirk Ferentz's team checking in at number 20, also reflecting some strength in the Big Ten so far that we've seen in these rankings. Number 19. Speaking of strength in the Big Ten, there they are, the Trojans of USC.
And there's USC, and they play Oregon later on in the season, so they'll have a chance to maybe make a statement there. They did beat Michigan also, so when you talk that 4th Big Ten team, they do have a win over Michigan.
Well, a lot of big games coming in the Big Ten for positioning and trying to make a finish. This is a bit of a fall. Boog, you mentioned this right off the top of the show. Miami descending. They lost the game to Louisville with all the turnovers, and they lost to SMU this past week.
And you can tell the committee's watching the game, because even though they're a 2-loss team and they have a couple of good wins, the fact that they are going down and descending, they're going to put them down. Even though they won the head-to-head against Notre Dame, Miami coming in at 18, a bit of a surprise.
Number 17. There it is, Greg. Georgia Tech, only the 1 loss to North Carolina State, ranked 17.
I think that's about right. I think this is a good football team. They had a really bad day. Now they get a chance to potentially bounce back. The schedule does strengthen down the stretch for Georgia Tech. Still have Georgia, still have a game against a ranked Pitt. Plenty of opportunity sitting in front for the Ramblin' Wreck.
Number 16. the Vanderbilt Commodores. After that loss to Texas, Vanderbilt's lost a couple of road games to Texas and to Alabama, but still in the fight at 7-2. Big hill to climb if they want to fight their way into the SEC championship game. Louisville has only a loss in overtime to Virginia. They've beaten Miami, and the Cardinals of Jeff Brom ranked number 15. How about number 14? And head-to-head is likely the difference here between Virginia and Louisville.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I think when you look at this committee, it's important to see where they're stacking these two teams at right now. To me, this is great insight when it comes to the head-to-head. And before we all lose our mind on the last Sunday.
Speak for yourself. No. Number 13. Here comes the Big 12, the Utah Utes. They've had a couple of impressive games, last two wins, one over Colorado and then Cincinnati on Saturday night. They put the hammer down against the Bearcats.
It looked really good. And when we talk about which conference is getting how many bids, ACC team sitting right behind Utah. Between Big 12 and ACC, a lot of question going to be at the end, which conference will get a second bid, a second team in.
Okay, now a quick reminder as we see number 12 and then number 11. That you have the 5 highest ranked conference champions and the next 7 highest ranked teams. Typically, that means that the cut line is going to be between 11 and 12. So, with that in mind, let's see who's number 12. The Oklahoma Sooners. Sooners stumbled a bit after John Mateer was injured. Big win on the road against Tennessee. They've got a shot at Alabama coming up later. So the Sooners at 7-2, ranked 12th, sitting with an opportunity to earn their spot. Number 11, this is probably the cut line. The Texas Longhorns, and they get head-to-head, at least right now, with a similar resume.
And it's amazing, as bad as Texas has looked at times this season, they're right in position, and they have a lot of roadway left in front of them. If they can continue to ascend, continue to play, Texas could wind up getting in this playoff.
In 2 weeks, they go to Georgia.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's when we'll find out what Texas
roadway
really
in front
is
of
made of.
Yep.
Absolutely.
It's also not about style points either, because Texas is getting by very narrow margins. Mississippi State and Kentucky, hey, just win, baby. At least it appears this way according to the committee.
Well, I mean, the whole thing is if you start trying to put this list together, and if you're sitting in that room, it's kind of, you hold your nose, and it's kind of where they wind up, a little bit. But now an opportunity to finish strong. There's no rule against improving over the course of the season. Who's number 10? Fighting Irish of Notre Dame. 2 losses, first 2 games of the season. One on the literal last play of the game, the other on the virtual last play of the game after missing an extra point, and they're getting some respect because of how they've played and probably how tight those losses.
And the way they look now, they look like a dominant football team running the ball.
BC notwithstanding Saturday. Everybody's entitled to one.
Everybody is entitled to one.
Yeah.
And if you have one close game, that doesn't bother me, but Notre Dame's an important team. It's going to be important because later on as we talk Texas A&M, and where they're ranked, that's on their resume.
I think visible improvement on one particular side of the ball. What was their biggest challenge early in the year? Defensively, the secondary was struggling. They were banged up. They had injuries. They can probably point to, well, hey, they were out some guys. They didn't know who they were. New DC, and now all those players and coaches that are in the room are saying, look how they're playing now 8 games into this, 8 games later. They're a completely different unit on that side of the ball.
And just like last year, they've got reinforcements coming, we hope, it seems, from injury on the offensive line, too.
Yes.
Number 9. The Oregon Ducks. Now, this is a team I was really interested to see because while they had the loss to Indiana and a great game in Eugene, not a lot of other things on their resume.
Overtime against Penn State, which at the time looked like a pretty good win.
But now it
since then, it does not look great. They went to overtime with Penn State.
I think everybody acknowledges the firepower. There's no one that denies the ceiling that Oregon has on their best day. We saw it against Rutgers. But right now, their best wins against a 5-3 Northwestern team. And that's no disrespect to the Wildcats. It's just they haven't had a chance to really prove it yet, albeit having lost to Indiana and the way things went now for Penn State.
Well, one thing I do want to point out, while they don't have a big resume win, if you look at ESPN strength of schedule, it's still top 40. It's not like it's, bottom of the country.
Yeah, right? I understand it's top 40, but they don't, to your point, Greg, they've had an opportunity to show us. You can't control who's on the schedule.
No, you
just
can't.
beat who's on your schedule and beat them by a big margin, and they haven't been able to do that.
And things get much tougher for them down the stretch. Washington's on the schedule, SC's on the schedule. You got Iowa this week. A lot still coming up for them.
Let's go to number 8. Texas Tech. Only the one loss against Arizona State. Joey McGuire's team and that great defense at number 8, great position. Huge game coming up with BYU. College Game Day will be there. And BYU is sitting there at number 7. Had a little bit of a guess. Promise haven't seen it. Felt like the right spot for the Cougars. Undefeated there. And,
I think we all expected.
Yeah,
7 played 8 this weekend.
The only blemish on BYU's resume is the quarterback's wearing 47. That should be a number that sacks quarterbacks, not one that is a quarterback.
I don't know. Michael Irvin rocked it pretty good there for a while.
As a wide receiver.
But, I'm giving Pollock. Giving Pollock some love there. Number 6, Ole Miss is 8-1. Lane Kiffin, the object of many an affection in the coaching carousel. His team's ranked 6th.
And I think if there's a such thing as a good loss, I think we look at Ole Miss's loss at Georgia, the way they played in that game, went head-to-head with Georgia. If you watch that game, you give Ole Miss credit for that game, even though they lost the game.
Yeah, the week after they went to the wire with Washington State. It was like, what are they doing?
I think the next 2 are going to be pretty predictable and easy, and probably some head-to-head as we go to number 5. It's going to be the top 3 that's interesting. Georgia's 5, only lost to Alabama. Is Alabama 4? I assume they are? They are. So Alabama is number 4, so that leaves Ohio State, Indiana, Texas A&M, 1, 2, 3. We talked about that. Joey has an idea, but it is A&M, Joey, who you said you'd have number 1. A&M as at number 3.
That is surprising to me because of the analytics, because of the record strength, because of the schedule strength. Texas A&M is ranked in both those metrics above Ohio State and above Indiana. I'm surprised that they're at number 3.
And to your point, and we talked about this a lot, Reese, they may have the best win in the sport going on the road in South Bend, beating that Notre Dame team, who we see where they are now.
Let's look at the top 2 now, with A&M being number 3. And obviously, there's still games to play and maneuvering to do. And we are likely on target for an Ohio State-Indiana Big Ten championship game, barring, some pretty significant upset the rest of the way. Hoosiers' schedule is very, very favorable. And Ohio State, of course, has Michigan. They don't play each other in the regular season. So there's one thing missing from the top 25 if you look at the criteria for establishing the bracket. It's the 5 highest-ranked conference champions. Only 4 conferences represented in that top 25. So what the committee does, they continue ranking until they get to a team with the 5th highest-ranked team from a conference to give you an idea of who would make it into the bracket. That's how they'll do it on Selection Day. So let's start to put together the bracket right now and look and see exactly how all of this would unfold if it were that way right now. So it would be, as you see on the left with the CFP rankings, it would be the Memphis Tigers. They're not in the top 25, but they are at the moment the highest ranked among the teams in the group of 5. Teams with the byes would be the top 4 ranked teams. Told you earlier, does not matter what conference you're in, does not matter if you are a conference champion. Obviously, that will help you get there on Selection Day, but right now, it's Ohio State, Indiana, Texas A&M, and Alabama. So the teams that would have the home games in Athens, home game in Lubbock, Oxford, and Provo. You see Georgia's 5, Ole Miss 6, BYU 7, Texas Tech 8. So that would mean that Georgia would play Memphis. It would be the 5th highest-ranked conference champion to make the field. So despite the fact that the Tigers are not ranked officially, they would be the 12th seed. And you see the other matchups, Oregon and Texas Tech, Tyler Shuck Bowl, so to speak, Virginia and Ole Miss, and Notre Dame and BYU. That's how it would stop for right now. So what jumped out at you? What was... They seem to honor head-to-head if they thought the teams were comparable. And to your point, they didn't seem to think Miami and Notre Dame at this point in the season were comparable.
I'm baffled right now.
Why?
Because I actually really agree with the rankings. I mean, I don't have a huge issue outside of maybe a team or 2 that might be slightly too high, too low. This rankings makes sense. This is the first time I feel like in an initial ranking where it's like, all right, I understand why they did that. That makes sense to me. They're putting premiums on how a team's looked, how consistent they've played. They are penalizing teams that haven't played anybody just yet or don't have a great win, a la Oregon, who, by the way, looks great, but they haven't played enough people yet to warrant a higher ranking. They're sitting 3 spots behind a team that I was curious to see who they'd be measured up against in Ole Miss. I just think they did a great job this week, and I'm flabbergasted by it. So tip the cap to the committee.
So to your point about teams that hadn't played anybody, who's Ohio State's best win?
Well, Texas, who's ranked 10th.
Illinois is not bad.
Yeah, I truly understand it. To Joey's point, I think Texas A&M's resume, the way they look, what they've done, deserves to be number 1. And I think when you look at Indiana going on the road to outs and beating Oregon, they even had an opportunity. I would have put them number one. I don't know if I'd put Ohio State at number one based on what they've done. Now, they still have road in front of them. But to Joey's point, Indiana and Texas A&M, I think they've done more so far.
Okay, let me ask you this, though. Who do you think's better?
So now here's the thing about that question.
That carries some weight, too.
Here's the thing about that question. And that's why I wanted to see this ranking, because this tells me that they're going a lot on eye test here. Because if we're going on rankings and analytics, Texas A&M is best analytically over Indiana and Ohio State, and they're sitting at 3. So they're going a lot off of eye test. And when you start telling me we're going off eye test, Reese, now all of a sudden we have no idea where this thing is going, because when you talk resume, you talk about who's their best win. But the Texas team we saw this weekend play Vandy. That was their best game. They looked like the Texas team
3 quarters.
we expected to see. They weren't that team early on in the season.
Yeah.
They weren't for a large part of that. So when you say who's their best win, a Texas team that didn't look great early. This surprises me because it's a lot of eye test, and I don't trust eye test as much as I trust
I love A&M.
analytics.
I think A&M's a really good football team. They have win right now against one current top 25 football team in Notre Dame, which, by the way, is a great win, especially up there. I mean, goodness gracious, especially with Notre Dame having lost the first game coming off a bye. Like, you get extra points for that. But Ohio State, let's not forget that they also went to Washington and shut Washington down to give them their first loss of the season. So we cannot remove that.
All
from
of that is
equation
baked
as well.
into the analytics.
And I also think if we're going exclusively on eye test, who's the team I'd least like to play? It's Indiana right now. I think Indiana right now, offensively
Everything you
and
said, though, is
defensively,
baked into the analytics that still has
To an
Texas
extent.
A&M above both those teams.
Here's one thing that I let slip by just a little bit. The cut line would be a little bit different right now because you have the 5 highest ranked conference champions got fixated on the Memphis angle of it. Virginia would actually be in the field as the 4th highest ranked conference champion because they at the moment are the highest ranked team from the ACC. So you'd move the cut line up another spot.
And another thing that we can look at here with what happened right now in the ACC with Georgia Tech losing and Miami losing, it's safe to assume they have their work cut out for them to get 2 teams in.
Yeah.
I think that is likely not happening. Now the Big 12. There's some legitimate wiggle room there because you still have Utah that's lingering. You still have Texas Tech and BYU, which will settle itself this weekend potentially. I mean, there's some wiggle room in the Big 12 to get 2 in.
Or more because you have Texas and Oklahoma, too, sitting there about to play Georgia and Alabama, so they could hurt their causes, too. We'll talk a little bit more about this with Mack Rhoades, who is the new chair of the College Football Playoff Selection Committee. He's been on the committee before. Athletic Director at Baylor will join us in just a little bit to talk about some of these decisions. And there's Mack right now. We'll talk a little bit about the enhanced metrics, how that played a role and how they evaluated it. And we'll have him once again explain to Joey that it's all part of it. It's not just metrics or just eye test. It's a mix. That's why we have the committee, Joey.